Welcome to the Market Moment. I'm Lee Mackey alongside Isaac Johnson, John Mardfeld.
Hello, hello.
We, this week, are going to be diving into the topic of financial literacy and our children.
Yeah, I need the help. I have a 5-month-old at home, and I got some questions.
It's never too early. You got a couple teenagers.
Oh, yeah. In college.
I've got, they're in college.
Lee has like 18 kids?
Yes. Yes. From 28 to 14. So, anyway, financial literacy in our kids. It's something that is on the minds of a lot of parents. We get questions about it. And so we're going to dive into that. I'm going to ask John this.
Sure.
And then, Isaac, I want you to chime in. And maybe because
I may have more questions than you have.
How early should you begin talking to kids about money?
Talking to kids about money? I'll go back to my kids. I'm passionate about the market. I bought my first stock when I was 14 years old, because I had a little bit of passion, and I bought Walmart stock from money I earned from washing dishes at my parents' restaurant.
And if you lived in Arkansas, that was kind of a
that was
requirement.
The big name, right?
For citizenship in the state of Arkansas, you must own at least one share of Walmart.
Exactly. And we walked into the little local, because back then it wasn't online. We had to walk into there was one office in Rogers that had brokers. And you walked in, you opened an account, and my mom had to be on the account, and I bought my couple of shares or whatever.
Did you get the actual stock certificate?
Yeah, that was still stock certificate time, and so anyway, it's kind of you fast forward to now, it's so much easier, so much more information. So kids now get access to it even if you don't teach them, because there's a lot of things that are or incorrect right over the meme craze and all these young people getting into stuff. But talking to your kids, I started talking to my kids probably probably age 10 about how to manage money. I know that's really young, probably too young, but how to manage money, and then try to get them interested in the stock market. So I started about 10. Connor, my old one, who's 22 now, he's owned stock for 10 years now. But he bought stock back, years ago, because I got him kind of excited about it and interested in it. But it's more about it wasn't about financial planning or whatever. It was just about the enjoyment that I have in the stock market, and I bled that over to my kids. Colton, my youngest, has got some, but he started a little bit later. But anyway,
you want to add something?
Well, I was just gonna say my first experience was a couple of years after yours with stocks, and it was Walmart and McDonald's. And every time that I didn't even know what a dividend was, but it was like every couple months. Hey, we're gonna go to McDonald's
on your dividend,
and on my dividends, and so we'd go
buy
eat
a thing of French fries.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
And so it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that was my first experience.
I think that's the part that's kind of fun to talk about, the investing part. But I think one thing that is, I don't know, I'll go in stages where I think that we're doing a great job on teaching it, and then there are other times I think, man, we have completely failed this next generation.
Oh, yeah.
It's just financial literacy. I mean, what is a checking account? Balancing your checkbook. And of course now, very seldom, well, I shouldn't say that. People carry checkbooks. They used to carry the registers, and, you'd balance it. Well, now you can get on your phone and know how much you have. And so to me, that literacy part is the part that I think is missing.
Totally agree.
Just basics. There, in another life, back when I was in Nashville, I had the opportunity to work with a couple of the professional sports teams, the Tennessee Titans and Nashville Predators. And one of the things that we did is when the Oilers moved to Nashville, became the Titans, we began working with them at the beginning of their football season. And I think we did it for 8 weeks. On Monday nights, we would go to their practice facility, and it was a requirement of every rookie and new player to the Titans.
That's awesome.
And we would teach financial basics. I mean, remember, these are 22, 24-year-old men, and we're teaching things, how to balance a checkbook, debt, planning, taxes. And many of these guys,
Well, you assume they know that because they get millions of dollars and so, but
and they have no clue.
Do not. And there's a big problem with, obviously we know this, for athletes, people that win lotteries, whatever, they don't know how to do anything, so they end up being broke, and a year later after getting all this money. So that's that's what you should be doing. I here in Rogers, I would go to the high schools and teach in the business classes, and I'd go in like once a semester just for one day. But I would teach all the kids, and it was kind of fun because I would teach them exactly what you're talking about, financial literacy, and these would be seniors, juniors in high school. And it's kind of fun because I would go into the stock market. I'd go into why it's important and when you get your first job to invest in your 401k and what all that means. And I've had kids come to me in their 20s, and now even getting into their 30s now, that have seen
old.
me. Yeah, because I'm old. That have seen me around and saying like, hey, man, I remember that class and I bought my first stock, and I've done all this. It makes me feel good. But most of those kids do not get that information, and most people don't. One thing that I will tell Isaac that the most important thing that I've tried to teach my kids, which was not taught to me, which I never had these conversations with my parents, never had these conversations with anybody. And by the way, they didn't have conversations with their parents and so on. We've gotten better at this stuff. But I've told my kids a couple things I think are key to success for kids is to learn about debt and not to get in debt, right? Stay out of debt as much as you can in your life, and you'll be free to do the decisions that you want, right? Debt captures you and traps you. So debt is my number one thing. And then investing, of course, investing for your future is number two, and they work hand in hand. The less debt you have, the more money you have to put towards your future.
Sure. Right.
So they kind of work together, but debt management and investing, and if you get that, if you teach that to your kids and you help them through that, it'll be far better than you and I were, Lee, in our generation, and it just gets better and better. And I think that is missing a lot, and we see that every day when we have clients that come in that are 65, retiring, and we might be the first time they actually talk to somebody in the industry is at 65.
I think that, and I don't know when it changed or if it has completely changed, but I don't want to say it was taboo to talk about money, but there wasn't a lot of explicit conversations with my parents. Now they led by example. They led great. I had a great example with my mom and dad, but as far as explicit
sitting down, talking.
I remember when my kids were young, and I think all kids will ask their parents this at some point, like, how much money do you make?
Yeah.
Well, my first reaction is like, well, it's none of your business, And so, and they're like, and this is when I remember this so vividly. One of my children, we were in the kitchen and they were like, do you make $2,000 a year?
Right.
And to them, that was this massive number.
Huge.
And
do you know how many things I can get for $2,000?
Have you seen Shaq talk to his kids about money?
I bet it's great.
They'll say something like, well, we're rich. He goes, no, I'm
rich.
You're not rich.
Yeah, I am rich. You are not rich.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. They will be rich. I'm sure they're doing
I'm
fine.
sure something. Yeah, absolutely.
He's like, you did nothing to earn this money.
Right.
He's very blunt with them about
very.
it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Quite the contrary. You've cost me money. Yes, I've heard that. So this article that we can put the link up on our podcast separates it into the age group of kids. Things to do, to kind of work with your kids about money. And so if you're listening out here, maybe you have children that fall into these categories. So preschoolers and kindergartners, here's 2 or 3 things to help with financial literacy. 1, use a clear jar for savings. Number 2, set an example with your own money habits. I can't stress that enough, how important that is, that, kids watch you. They we know that. They hear what you say, they see what you do. And so setting examples. And then the third is show them that things cost money.
Right.
I mean, we hear, we kind of joke with our kids even now that they think it just grows on the tree out in the backyard, that, well, why can't I have fill in the blank?
I have a very vivid memory of like saving up. I don't know where I would get it from. $1 here, $1 there. And I got $10. And I went to Walmart and I was going to buy some toy that cost $10, and I took it to the register, and then I saw what taxes got added to it, and my mom let me sweat it out. Like, she just watched me and was like,
Was
give me
she
your
was she
money.
gonna kick in
knew
the?
she knew I didn't have enough when I walked up to that register, and she just
So you went out
and
on
so-
the street and said, "Can I have 70 cents?"
Well,
Somebody
$7,
I
yeah.
think I ended up pleading with her enough for her to give me the extra change. But like that core memory of
But I like
just
I need
doesn't
I need
cost-
more
yeah.
than that. Yeah.
And I like the idea of that clear jar, seeing it,
Yeah.
because oftentimes, you have the piggy banks or something that
Mm-hmm.
you don't see, but having a image of, how much you have or how little you have. So that's when they're young.
Yep.
That's a great way. Now we move them to elementary school, middle school. So now we're in the 7, 8 years old up to 12, 13
yeah.
years old. Show them how opportunity cost works. I love that. It's choices.
Yep.
If you choose to buy X, then you may not
can't
have
get-
money for Y.
yeah.
And so, we've got a 14-year-old. He's in the latter stages of middle school, and we're doing that. It's that this summer we've paid him an allowance, and he's had to make decisions with that. But he's into Roblox, and so he likes to buy the add-ons for Roblox, and so he's had to make decisions like, you can buy this add-on for $4, or you can do something else. And he's had to make choices. So opportunity cost. Give commissions, not allowances. As I sat here and said, we pay them allowance. Make them earn it. And then avoid impulse buys. I think that we can do that. And then at that age, you start stressing them the importance of giving.
Yeah.
I think that you can never start too early with that.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
giving's important. From the earliest time I can remember going to church with my parents, them giving me, a quarter or, a dime, whatever, because
That was back in the 50s. The quarter was a big deal.
Huge.
big deal. But I mean,
I don't even
it
know
was
what that is.
yeah, it's change, coins.
Uh-huh.
And so teaching them, if you get $1, well, save a little bit of it, spend a little bit of it, save a little bit of it. So thoughts on those?
I like all those things, and I think those are great. And I always think about like the Dave Ramsey line of thinking for adults, how you that kind of like something you do for parenting. That's like 101, right? I think there's no bad way. If you do any of those things, you're doing the right thing. I think teaching the kids any of those is correct. And then I kind of add stuff to it. I think you can get more detailed if you want. And that's when you get into like using the money to not buy things, but to buy stuff that you like. Like, for example, Connor now owns NVIDIA, Apple, he owns stock, but he understands what these stocks are, and he like has an Apple phone.
Right.
So I understand. So it's like tangible things. So rather, if you love your favorite place to go is McDonald's or whatever, then you own McDonald's stock.
Why did
And
he?
now you have a
Why did
little
he
bit-
point to you?
I don't know.
Well, no,
I-
because you
I-
said that you had
I mean,
McDonald's
just
back.
like just caught astray in the middle of his thing.
He's
Yeah,
an
that's
offensive
okay.
lineman. McDonald's is in his vocabulary. So
No.
anyway.
I'm just thankful he didn't point at me.
You know
Right.
you like McDonald's. Don't get me wrong. So anyway, but
lie.
whatever you eat or own or whatever, if you have a partnership with that, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
cool. Like we were watching Disney movies all the time, and so we bought a share of Disney stock, for the kids. This is way back, but you go through life and you and then they have some kind of, and you kind of can teach them stuff as
Yeah.
you're buying a product or whatever. Like, hey, you actually, we're buying this. We're going to Disney World. We're spending way too much money to get in this park, but you get some of this back because you own the stock. Right?
You know,
you can teach them stuff like that.
One question I get from parents is on this commission versus allowance or allowances. I don't think I've ever heard it called commission.
I know,
but
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I get where they're going. I will admit, in case my kids are watching, I have been very inconsistent at best with this. But I think the older I've gotten, with the kids that are still in the house, they have set responsibilities just because their last name is Mackey.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
live in the house and so forth. And so I try not to just say, well, here's X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
I've begun to try to tie it to things they do. They have responsibilities around the house. Thoughts on allowances for kids?
I'm actually just curious, both of you. I have a 5-month-old son, What age can I start making him mow the yard?
Probably 6 months.
Okay, that's what I was
When-
thinking. I think we're getting close.
Because he can lean
I had to
into the
do
mower,
that.
right?
Yes, there's that little bar at the bottom. They can do
It's
that.
safe. It's safe.
Yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be fine.
Put shin guards on him. He's good.
10
But no,
years old, maybe.
Yeah.
but again,
That's good.
this kind of shows that even when they're young, you can begin to teach them about, and then avoiding impulse buys. Boy, that line right by the check
You
out
can
at
put that for
Walmart.
a lot of
Yeah.
ages.
It's it used to be just candy, and
Right.
now it's phone chargers
gosh,
and
it's all kinds
I
of
mean,
things.
it's the adult.
When I grew up, it
impulse
was
purchase.
the Matchbox cars.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know I remember vividly, I was very little. It was before I started working at my parents' restaurant, which I started working way too young. But I remember going through the line and I wanted a Matchbox card, and they're like 99 cents. And my mom would not let me get them. And I remember she said to me, and I was throwing a little bit of fit. She goes, well, if you start working, you can buy one of those. I was like 5, right? But I started work. I wanted to work at the restaurant so bad.
Yeah.
Just so I could go get my own things. It kind of gave me that thought. I'm going to go back to something else, a motivation that I think can work for kids. This is a little bit, this is more of our generation of
Yeah.
spoiling a little bit. But one thing that I kind of, Kathy and I did this with our boys, is like we gave our kids something special for A's in classes, right? And it's kind of like you shouldn't have to do that, but we gave them a pretty good treat if they would get A's. Well, both of them were basically 4.0 students. Connor was over 4 point and Colton was right at 4 point. So it worked because that motivation, I think that was part of the motivation, right? I mean, they knew there was something good. I remember we said we would go to Universal Studios in the summer. We'd already bought the tickets. They had no idea. But only if they had straight A's, the two of them. And they were getting on each other like during the semester.
That's
Like,
nice.
get your history grade up or whatever, like they wanted to go. So it kind of motivated them to work harder, which, by the way, ultimately ends up helping you in college because they get scholarships.
Yeah.
See, that's financially smart for you and for them. So anyway, that's a side nugget.
Let's move on to teenagers.
Oh gosh, teenagers.
This is the age that I'm dreading.
God bless all those parenting teenagers.
The first point on how to teach teenagers about money, and I actually had a conversation with somebody that we all know yesterday. Teach them contentment. Teach them how to be content. And I think right now, I mean, this is something that we in our battle. It's not spoiling them, but teaching them to appreciate the things that they have and the experiences that they get to participate in. We live in a society, and it hasn't changed from when I was a teenager, and now fast forward, 40 years later, it's the same issue. It's, well, little Johnny,
Yeah.
Susie down the street has this kind of car. I want
Right.
this car. Well, their parents threw them a huge sweet 16 birthday, and
doubt.
it's this, I want to keep up with the Joneses, and that has not changed.
No.
And it is a struggle in a social media world.
Yeah.
Teaching
100%.
your children how to just be content, because we as parents oftentimes are guilty of, we don't like to say no.
Of course.
And we want our kids to have it better than we had it. And so we run into that of feeding into that discontentment.
100% correct. You look around. My kids graduated Rogers High School here, and we're blessed to be in this great area where everything seems to be a little better than other parts of the country, right? It's just everything. But it's all relative, because you always have kids that are 1 notch below you, 2 notches below you, 4 notches below you, and financially, or 1 notch above you, 2 notches above you, 4 notches above you.
Sure.
And that idea that everybody in every little notch has somebody they wish they were a little better, and somebody's envying them, right? And if you can teach your kids not to get into that trap, which I feel like Kathy has done a really good job of that. I'm not the greatest at that, but our kids have, to your point, Lee, there's been specific times, there's a Harry Potter movie I think it's the very first one, when the little boy that Harry Potter lives with, he gets his birthday and he's got like 22 presents, and he says, last year I had 23 presents, and he throws a fit, because he only had 22 presents. It's kind of like, I remember watching that with the boys, the Harry Potter, and I always give them trouble on their birthdays or Christmas when they, like that we don't over give them, and we talk about giving to others at those moments rather than giving to ourselves. And I always bring up the Harry Potter movie. Anytime they get a little sassy, I'm like, you're not getting 23 presents this year. You know, like, because it's kind of funny, but there is a problem around, like, you see that a lot.
Yeah.
And you'll see that as your kids grow through school, the kids want to be hanging around with everybody, and a lot of the pressure of having to wear the nicest shoes or the hot, shirt on. It's hard. It's tough on a parent.
Yeah.
Because you want your kid to be happy and feel included and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard not to spoil them rotten to make them feel like they are part of all that.
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
Another one as a teenager, give them the responsibility of a bank account. How old were you when you had your first checking account?
Do you have one now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thanks. Yeah. They still check my ID whenever I walk in.
Yeah.
Were you a teenager?
I was probably a teenager. I think I did one of those, they have the like kid savings accounts there.
Yeah.
And so I was probably pretty young, probably like 11, 12.
I remember I was in the Squirrels Club at some credit union, savings, or savings and loan, back, but
I
that
don't
was,
remember what mine was called.
but it was a
club.
savings
Yeah,
account.
yeah.
So having them have a bank account, start saving for college. There's probably not a lot of teenagers that is their mindset.
Right.
I'm going to begin saving for college. Teach them to steer clear of student loans. Teach them the dangers of credit cards. Guys, I'm telling you, I have 3 daughters. 2 of them are, one's 19, one's 22, and I'll bet you each gets 2 to 3 credit card offers a week.
Oh, of course, yeah. Connor and Colton get the same things. It's unbelievable.
So the dangers of credit cards, get them on a budget. Once your kids start working around 16, and having a steady flow of money, they need to get on a budget.
Yeah.
It's difficult. They oftentimes don't see mom and dad doing that,
Right.
but
Right.
they need to do that. Go ahead.
I think another good thing you could do is teach them that 10% goes to church, to God. 10% you should equal that into your savings account that you do not spend. And if they get in that habit when their first job at the water park or whatever, my kids did that, and they get a check for $100, for whatever, 10 goes to church and 10 goes to a savings account that they will not touch. And you can teach them that early on. And when they get to 25 and they have their first job or their second job, whatever, they're making $60,000, let's say. And if they do that same exact concept and they're used to that, 10% goes to God, 10% goes to my savings, then all of a sudden now it's 600 and 600, but you get used to that and that carries forward your entire life. And then by the time you're 50 and you're making gobs of money, you're still doing that same thing. And by the way, that obviously makes your retirement very smooth, keeps you in line with the big guy upstairs, right? But you're just getting the habits of doing that. And I think that's a very strong thing to encourage kids to do that too.
This may be throwing y'all under the bus here. Surprise question. What did you guys do for first cars?
Porsche 911.
Not for you.
That was not for me either.
Was there a rule with them that you set aside? Okay.
Yes. Well, my parents never bought me a car. My first car that I owned was when I got married. Okay.
Wow.
At the time.
He got married at 16.
Because I wanted a car
I wanted a car so bad.
What I did is I bought just a piece of junk. I mean, I don't think I spent over $5,000 on any of my, my older kids' cars. My philosophy was if I got a call that they had been in an accident, I wanted to worry more about them than the car. And so I just, I basically got them 4 wheels, something that would go from point A to point B. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
Sometimes they made a lot of noise, but it was a car. Now, most of them then had additional, another car number 2 and car number 3. I made them put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that children have skin in the game for decent sized purchases, cars, college. they need to have some ownership because I think they appreciate it more and they're going to take it more seriously. They're going to make sure it's a little cleaner. So that was mine.
Isaac, I failed miserably. Okay. So what Lee said, contempt. Try.
Yeah.
We had 2 cars, Kathy and I. When Connor turned 16, I went and got another car and I gave him my car. Mm-hmm. And my car was a 4-door blue, awesome Jeep Wrangler, and it was too nice for a 16-year-old.
Right.
Okay. Connor was a straight A student, great kid, did all these things, blah, blah, blah. We felt like he could handle it, and he did handle it. It was fine. He only tipped it over 3 times. No, I'm kidding. He never tipped over. But it was a mistake, right? If I could go back, I would have given him a junker, and I'd have made him help pay for it, right?
Yeah.
Now, his first car after that Jeep, he paid. He was in the game with me on the car. In fact, I put him on the loan. I joint loan so he would get some credit history built. It's like when he buys his first house years from now, he's got credit.
Yeah.
But that's the story there. So I kind of halves it with him, and he did too nice of a car. So we're one of the biggest mistakes that Kathy and I and the boys have made, and I always tell this to young people, encourage all young people. Cars are the biggest waste of money on the planet. Like, just get something, get you to point A to point B, and be satisfied with it, right? And use your money for other greater things than a stupid car. And so we've failed on that, right? So anyway, that's my story. That's
why I prefaced it, maybe throwing you under the bus right there.
No, you did. But if I ever have kids again, I'll know.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Which I will not.
I will say that there's probably not a parent out here that's listening and that walk through our doors that could say they've done everything right. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that we would do differently. Money is power. With money comes responsibility, and that is one thing that we do try to teach our kids is that, the more successful you become in life financially, that comes with some responsibility. That comes with, we have conversations with our children often about, unfortunately or fortunately, how you want to look at it, where we live in the state of Arkansas is not typical Arkansas. No. And unfortunately, where we live in Rogers is not typical of all of Rogers. And so we make it a point to, to stress to our kids, to whom much has been given, much is required. And so we want our kids to give back and to help. And we at the firm,
sure,
have made it a focus of ours. But, we screw up a lot. And, but then you know what? You learn from it and try to do better. And then we try to give advice and, stories to young parents.
Yeah.
The good news, Isaac, I coached 5th, 6th grade boys, for 6 years. And that was my best time in my life. I've coached both my sons through football, 5th and 6th grade, and I loved all that time. Loved all the kids I met. But you will find every single parent makes mistakes, right? In some way, form, or fashion, right? Whether it be too much, too little, too hard, too soft, whatever the story is about every kid, you learn from other kids and parents that we're all in this together. And the good news, you and your wife can sit back and say, we messed up on this, but we did a lot better than that parent. You can always have somebody you can point at and say, we're doing better than that parent.
And the other thing that I'll add is if you have more than one child, chances are they're going to be very different. I mean, we have extremes in our family. I mean, I have a child that if I gave them $100, they would still have $100 a year from now.
Right.
I mean, I have another child that if I gave $100 before I could finish the sentence, they would have spent 95 of it. And so your kids are gonna be different, and what worked for one will not work for another one. So it's
100%.
It's part of parenting. It's part of parenting. The last thing is this article talked about was teaching them compound growth. We kind of talked about that on investing and so forth. But anyway, good topics. Sometimes our topics on the podcast are serious on financial advice and things like that. And sometimes it's things like this that is every bit as important. And sometimes we could say it's even more so of, kind of teaching our next generation on how to handle money, because it is powerful. it can be used for so many things for good,
Mm-hmm.
but boy, it can destroy a lot of lives too.
I will say my last thing on, I have noticed here at Mach 1, we've had a lot of appointments that come in, and we get all different range of ages that come in. But I'm always encouraged when I get young families that come in. And I've had quite a few in the last month or so, just young families. And what's amazing to me is they sit down with me, they're 25, 26, 27, and they have money saved. They have things in order. And it's like refreshing because my generation was not like that. We were not, I mean, obviously some kids were better than others. But my point is, it seems like some of that is leaking through to the younger generation, right? Where they're getting the information, they're doing their 401k stuff, they're doing all the right things. When Lee and I started in the business, the 401ks were a brand new thing, and not everybody even knew what they were. So, and not every company had them. So it's kind of nice to see young people actually doing the right things for the most part.
Absolutely.
It's good.
Hey, as we wrap up this podcast, we let our listeners and viewers know that we like to see comments, have comments. We received this comment within the last week. It's a little long, but I'll read it. This commenter, viewer, writes, 2 thoughts come to mind: Chicken Little, the screaming that the stock markets are falling or rising and living the roller coaster emotional life, and also the armchair quarterback, the one who knows better than those who spend their lives, the professionals, doing research and study and practical experience in that area. I have been doing personal investing for 30 years. This is the commenter. And have just recently perhaps arrived at the halfway point of my stock picking knowledge. I am fairly good at selecting a buy point based on fundamentals and technical indicators, and yet have not been able to master the sell point due to the emotional attachment that I have acquired while holding a purchase stock. We are always encouraged to be loyal in character, and yet loyalty can perhaps be a negative trait when it comes to investing. I've never thought of that.
I never thought about that at all.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
The loyalty trait has driven me to become more of a buy and hold investor, I suppose. If it was such a great buy at the time, what would make it a sell? So buy and hold results. Thank you guys for your chats on interesting topics. I'll keep listening. I thought
great
I thought
comment.
that was
That's great.
Yeah,
Great
the,
comment.
the loyalty.
Yep.
We do
Emotion I haven't really focused on the loyalty side, which is cool.
and that's what he's saying though.
Yeah, the emotional I do talk about a lot, that we emotionally invest, but the loyalty thing is
And,
kind of a new.
and we do tell our clients, we take the emotion out of it, because clients money's an emotional topic.
It is a huge,
But I failed to mention it at the beginning, but if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please give us a like, a thumbs up, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. We are looking for ways to reach different audiences, and we hope that today's podcast was something that you like to listen to. As always, we appreciate your comments. Please drop one, and we might try to read it on the air if it's nice. Anyway, if you're a Spotify listener, it's important. I don't think on Spotify you have a way to like or subscribe, but you can send us an email with your comment. It's themarket1fg.com. Guys,
That's great.
good topic.
Thanks for the advice. You go home and get the mower ready for next month.
Absolutely.
Yep, next month.
Get that savings account and get that clear piggy bank so
Yeah.
he can see the coins coming in. Come
You know,
in.
I get in trouble giving
we'll show you
6 months old
those
coins.
later.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, for John, for Isaac, and myself, we hope everyone has a great week. We'll see you next week on The Market Moment.